It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to It's About to Go Down. I am Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas, and we have our good friend Josue Cevallos with us. Josue is a veteran. Thank you for your service, Josue. He's an entrepreneur, a badass entrepreneur, by the way, and he just loves helping people. And Josue has this idea that he wants to talk about today. Shift happens. We know that we've heard that before. We've heard stuff about shift, but we've never heard it in Josue's way. And so we are excited to have Josue on our show talking about shift happens. Welcome, Josue.
Thank you so much. What a great group of individuals to be surrounded by. And as I look forward to this meeting today, one of the things that came up in my mind was, don't try, just be natural, because both of you make me feel so comfortable, so grounded, and so real that there's really no need to try and project this sense of importance or know-it-all, so to speak. But just to have a conversation in the most genuine way that you can and just let it come out from within. And in a sense, that's what Shift Happens is all about. Mm-hmm. So often in life, we want to just try and change the external, whether it's do something about pollution, about traffic, about our boss, even our spouse. But in essence, when you understand that if you start from your sense of being as your reference point, and don't try and change others or things, but change yourself, because it's all feedback at the same time, in essence. And when you take it as feedback, then you can make the shifts. And in those shifts, then you can see a transformation occur. So don't force things. And the things that may seem like negatives, challenges, despair, oftentimes it's feedback, it's opportunities. So it's whatever you make of it. If you take it as negative, it will be negative. But if you look at it and just shift your perspective on it, it's an opportunity. That's what shift is all about. If we perhaps have to transition to a new career, one of the challenges I had was reinventing myself. When I was in the Army, I put on a uniform. That was my identity, that uniform. And like Superman has his cape, for me, that was my cape. And when I retired, I had to give up that identity. So life itself it demonstrated to me that shift happens. I couldn't fight it. It was something that inevitably would happen. And I embraced that transition. And I'll tell you, I am happier than I've been in a very long time. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of the time I spent in the military and wearing the uniform. And taking those skills and tools, which a lot of veterans have a challenge in that transition. But recognizing that you can take off the uniform, but the experiences, the skill sets, the wisdom, you don't have to cast that away. You can still take that with you. You can turn in all your Army gear, but you can take away the experiences. And that's part of the mindset of shift.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. And right there at the end, when you talk about how many veterans have been challenged with those transitions, or as you call them, the shifts, what makes the shift so challenging?
Part of it, I believe, is this paradigm of difference, of saying it's kind of like being a fish out of water. And so all of a sudden, a lot of veterans feel like they're a fish out of water. They don't relate. They use a different language. There's a different structure. I'll give you an example. When I walked around with my uniform, you wear your resume every day in essence. All the things you've done, whether you've been to combat, your rank. And when you're in the military, you can read that. So you walk into a room and people identify with that automatically, that are in that same environment, that same world. You put away the uniform, you step out, and you're just Marc or Josue, and people don't know what you've done, where you've been. And so for a lot of veterans, that's a very challenging thing because they don't speak the same language as the civilians. They don't use the same rank structure, and the routine isn't the same. So these are these transformational challenges. Instead of adapting to them and seeing how they can fit into it, oftentimes it's like oil and water. And they reject it, or they feel rejected by society in essence.
Josue, that's really that's a really good example of where shifting is really hard. I've definitely worked with a couple veterans on talks that they've given, and they've expressed some of those same feelings that you just described. It made me think too about, shifting for everybody, because that's a great example. And it's probably a very extreme example because veterans have went through a lot, and to come back over here, to come back and be with civilians again, I think is a hard shift. But I also think that a lot of times people feel that they probably feel the shift is really hard when they've lost a job or got laid off, or they're going through a divorce. And it probably also feels like a really hard shift. And I wanted to throw this thought out there and see what the two of you think. But I was working with a lady a long time ago that moved here from Brazil, and we were working on a talk, and she had this like really great job, and she got laid off, and she had a bunch of things happen so that she had to move to the United States because a bunch of really hard things happened in her family. So there was like shift, right? And she became an entrepreneur, and she did really well. And when we looked in hindsight, we talked about shift as being when something happens that causes you to shift, it's one of two things. You've either been pushed or you're jumping, right? Which is kind of interesting, right? If you make some kind of shift, you're either deciding to do something, and so you're actually jumping, or you're being pushed. Most people, there's no other way usually. I mean, usually when people are comfortable, right? And so I don't know, I just wanted to explore that a little bit and to see what you've thought about that, Josue.
Those are two great points, Cathey. The dominating factor is fear is always present in any situation where you have to do something that feels like a threat, whether it's that transition from having employment to no employment, because the thought of how am I going to survive, how am I going to feed my family, how am I going to provide a roof over my family's head, those are survival concepts. So it hits us at the very core of who we are. And making that transition, it's that decision of what you do with that situation and how you handle that fear. So in those critical moments, it's that decision that you make. And when we have habits and patterns. And if you create a habit of, in the past, when you met a difficult situation and your mindset was, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to keep going, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to see the light of day, this is temporary. If you have that mindset, those are like muscles, they're being strengthened. And it could have been a decision earlier on in your life, whether it was something as simple as, I'm going to ride my bike to school instead of taking the bus. and this pattern of decisions that just keeps on going builds up that wall, that strength, that muscle, so that when you face those bigger, more challenging things in life, you know what to do. You use that blueprint, so to speak. It's in your DNA embedded. And so you respond and you decide and say, I know what the right decision is. However, when you have a pattern of when it gets difficult, you run. Let's say you move out on your own at 18 and you've run into the challenge of I can't make it. So instead of figuring out and getting a second job to pay for the rent, You call your mom or your dad, hey, bail me out, help me out. Not to say that there aren't times in life when you need to do that. But when that's the pattern, guess what? You've created a blueprint, and that becomes oftentimes the blueprint. So I think it's what your habits are, your decision-making habits, that determines how things are going to play out in your life. So you can reflect on your life and take a look at that.
You know, you talked about reflecting on life. I connect that to another word that you use. And Cathey, I think this ties in with what your point was as well. Josue, you used the word identity a little bit earlier, right? It's so hard, and I'm trying to look at my notes exactly where you said it. Oh, when I was in the Army, my uniform was my identity. I think there are so many things that we can be used to that are a part of our identity. And I think the struggle sometimes with shifting is shift is a temporary thing sometimes, but our identity, we at least want it to be permanent. And so there's this constant struggle of, but this is who I am. And why should I change? And why does everything have to change? I don't want that shift. What do we say to the people who struggle with that internal battle between shift is temporary, but identity is permanent?
That's a profound question. And sometimes external factors even bigger than ourselves makes us where we don't have time to think about it. We just have to react. I'll share a little. Yesterday I was watching this short little video on Jurassic Park. And it shows two small dinosaurs, baby dinosaurs, and they're fighting each other. And there's lots of vegetation, lots of life. And then come along two bigger dinosaurs. And they scare off the little dinosaurs. And I think one of them gets eaten or something like that. And so now the big dinosaurs, it's like, I rule the earth. I'm the biggest, the baddest. And then something happens that they didn't expect. A huge volcanic eruption, and we know what happens to the dinosaurs, right? Shift happens. Either check your ego. To me, it was a reflection of too big to fail, too powerful. Check your ego, because there's always something bigger. And in essence, it's going back to identity. If your values are consistent through and through, those things don't shift. They are centered. They are universal. They are timeless. But we forget about that because we externalize everything. We want to grasp everything out there because it says, I have to do these things. And oftentimes you may compromise your integrity. You may compromise your honesty, your word, your honor, because you say, I have, and then you justify, I have to do this for my family. And you can justify anything. We've seen that throughout history. But as we lay out the tapestry of time, we recognize those were falsehoods. They may seem powerful at that moment in time. That nation might have been the Roman Empire, but it's something we talk about now.
You know, I love that you brought this question up, Marc, because I think Josue was saying before that there's a lot of moments in our life that allow us, they're like mini shifts. They're like, they give us shift training, if you will, right? When he was saying it, I was thinking of it like, oh, it's like shift training. We get to practice all these little, many times. And then, our values are put to the test when something big comes along. And I think that you nailed an issue that a lot of us have, is that unfortunately our identity might be in the wrong thing. We might feel like our identity is in something, but if that thing can be removed or taken away, if we're the little dinosaurs and we're so oblivious to not only bigger dinosaurs and then even the extinction of the entire species, we're playing on such a small level. We wouldn't even be able to anticipate a shift like that. And I feel like that is a really bad place to be in. Most professional athletes, I was thinking about this, just watching the US Open yesterday and watching tennis players. I never grew up playing tennis, but I can tell you it's a sport that you have to respect because they're playing in these grueling, long matches and they have to shift constantly. Like if you do something that's super brilliant against your opponent, but he gets to it, and then all of a sudden you're on the shift. And, I feel like, so I feel there's certain people like professional athletes that are their entire training is around shifting, right? They're training for the shift that will inevitably happen. And it's interesting. So anyway, I loved what you asked, Mark, that, and I love Josue, your answer, because it just like we should be looking at our life in a bigger way. And one more thing to add, and Josue, I wonder what you think about this. I feel like if I look back into my life, some of the shifts that I hated the most have given me some of the best. They've actually helped my identity the most. They've actually they've forced me to do it with my values. They've forced me to do it the harder way, not the easier way. And it's helped me a lot along my journey.
I know a lot of times these concepts or ideas are used over and over, and it's for a reason. And the example that's often given is the diamond, how much pressure, how much heat, and it has tremendous value to us. Or gold, can't tarnish it, can't replicate it. And so these elements, these things that are part of our nature, they are constantly used as symbols to remind us of something that is valuable, because of how much effort, how much energy, and how rare it is. And we have to remind ourselves about that. So when you come into a room or into a group of individuals, you oftentimes gravitate naturally without even a word being spoken. And you say to yourself, there's something about that person I just connect with. Or you're on a level of frequency, because it may be that you are that diamond, and a diamond I recognize as a diamond, or like they say, birds of a feather flock together. Going back to the concept that there is no substitute for hard work. Everyone says there's an easy way, and there's always better ways, but that takes work to develop and create that system to make things easier, so to speak. But somebody had to put in the work. There's a gentleman that I study, his name is Dr. Buckminster Fuller. And he says, I don't try and teach people to drive safer. He was an engineer. He says, I make safer roads that people drive on. And he was one of the designers of all the curves. When you go into a curve, the way the roads were made 100 years ago, there's a lot of cars that would go off the side of the road into the embankments. And so he designed the natural curve based on the speeds and the terrain, all those things. He says, I don't try and tell people to drive safer. That doesn't work. I just create safe roads that people drive on.
First of all, I love that as a metaphor. I love that as a metaphor. How would you use that metaphor to explain how and why people should be open to these shifts in life?
One of the ways you can is try to understand where people are coming from. First, get in their driver's seat. And Perhaps somebody might have a sports car and they're like, I can take that road at 90 miles an hour. And another person is like, I can just barely put gas in the car and keep the engine turning. So it's understanding where people are coming from. And when you connect with them in that empathetic way and recognizing you have their attention. In any talk you ever hear, it's said over and over again. People don't remember what you said, but how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as in any way that if you want to influence people, again, don't try and change them, try and understand them. And the other piece of advice that I've heard before, it says, help others get what they want and you'll get everything you want. So don't try and take anything away from anybody. Try and figure out with how can I help you? Right? That's the whole concept of love thy neighbor. How can I help you? And I think if we start with that, then we have a receptive audience.
Yeah. That's such good analogies, Josue. I was thinking about if there was some kind of anatomy of your shift. The one of the first things that I wrote down is acceptance. It kind of speaks to what Marc was saying, like people that might be thrown off by a big shift, and it might first, hit you, and your first wave of how you react is probably emotional, or you feel the fear, you feel the loss that you talked about. And so maybe part of the anatomy is first acceptance, is accepting what it is. And then the second part is like, now what can I do with this? And then what can I do with this then splits into like two levels. If it's just dependent on you, then what can I do with this for me, and how this will affect my life or my family? And if it involves other people, I really love this thing that, you said, how can I help you? If I can help you, I can get everything I need or want. To me, that's how I see it breaking down. It's super simple and yet hard at the same time.
The answer is, as difficult as it may seem, is to take the focus off yourself sometimes. When you're feeling the most down, the most defeated, practice that principle of how can I help? And you somehow, whether it's you go down and read books to kids at the library, or you go to the park and you pick up a piece of trash, even though nobody may see you do that. Try and get outside of your own head and go do something for others. And that starts unfolding and melting away that self-pity perhaps that you feel.
Yeah.
We get caught up in our own thing, and all we're doing is drawing more in of that energy. And so if we shift that, and that's what it does. One of the things that during the world wars, they recognize that a lot of soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress, they called it shock, where they just couldn't function, is they would simply take them out of the battlefield and they would have them do menial tasks like making sure they shaved, making sure that their area was orderly, and that took that shock of what they went through off their mind. It shifted their mind. And so if we're facing something very challenging, loss of employment, loss of a relationship, redirect that energy in a positive way. Get outside your own way.
Here's what I love about this. And first of all, Cathey, I love the way your mind works, because you're already thinking like, all right, so the shift, right? What's the process of the shift, right? And I love that. Thinking about the acceptance, and Josue, you added to it. Take the focus off of yourself and ask, how can I help? And as you were saying all that, I just kept thinking, shift happens, shift happens, shift happens. Often sounds like it's happening to us, right? It's almost a responsive way of thinking about shifts, as opposed to when shifts happen. right? Because when the shift happens, I'm in control of the shift. That's usually why I think so many people struggle with shift, changes, redirection, because something is happening to me. You have painted this in such a much more proactive way that I'd love to explore that even further, especially as Cathey has kind of lined it up where like, what's the process, right? So when shift happens, what do I need to do to make the shift happen, right? What are some of the other steps? Acceptance and asking how I can help. What are some of the other things I can do to feel in control of the shift that is happening?
I would say is first and foremost, take responsibility for everything in your life. You can't make any changes. You can't have an impact or effect on the things that you may say are shift happenings that you do not desire. But if you take it as feedback and that it's your life that these things are showing up in, and take responsibility, even though you could make 101 reasons why this has nothing to do with you, that you're just a victim of a bad situation. And some can call it victim shaming or all of these other things. But if you take responsibility as to why or it happened, and it could be something terrible, and we can name a few things that happen in people's lives. A loss of a loved one unexpectedly, their house burning down, maybe getting robbed or shot or any of those things. But if you take responsibility for it, that here it is, this showed up in my doorstep, what do I do now? And you have to turn that, you have to shift that. See, nothing is right or wrong, it's what you choose it to be.
It's very empowering. It's very empowering to think that, you know, you can take a really bad situation and you have to do something with it. I just spent the week with my aunt. She was here visiting from Southern California, and her and my uncle had their only daughter pass away. She had just turned 30, and it was health related problems that shouldn't have went that far. Like she had some, autoimmune things, but it should have never went this far to death. And we had a lot of conversations, Josue, about, this is really hard. This sucks. This is really sad. But what can you do? And she kept going back to this statement that I loved because it opened the door for shift to happen. And she said, I just want to make her life matter. And I'm like, wow, well that opens the door for some really great opportunities to be able to, that gives you something that you can do. You can do something with that. As opposed to, I think sometimes when something bad happens to us, if we feel like it's completely out of our control, somebody robs us, we're like, we didn't choose to rob us. But then if we don't have any empowerment in that, it's easy to stay stuck. So I feel like I love that a lot. And it's not taking responsibility for something bad that somebody did, but it's just saying, hey, something happened to me. I'm supposed to do something with it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I get a little too serious, and I'm trying to figure out like how can I lighten this topic that maybe it's too philosophical and make it fun and so I'll throw this in here. One of the things I enjoy doing, I like watching snails.
Okay. All right, say more.
Say more, way more.
What is your association when you think of a snail? What comes to mind?
Moving slow.
A
Moving
very
slow.
slow animal that you don't want to step on.
Right? They move very slow. But what I realize when you slow down, when I intentionally focus on that slow moving object, you know what happens? I see more. If you just take that moment, and part of that, it's symbolic for being present. We so often we want to be so far ahead, and catastrophes show up because we got to get on the road, and maybe we forgot to put our seatbelts on.
Mm-hmm.
That's just another metaphor to exemplify how we want to keep moving faster and faster and faster, when in essence, if we just slow down, we can see and do a lot more and avoid some of these pitfalls. Go ahead, Mark.
No. I want you to finish that thought first.
One of the trainings that we did in every military school that you go to, it's called land navigation. It's an important skill that represents to me life itself. You're given certain number of points that you have to reach under various conditions. You have the event at night and during the day. During the day, you have to find 4 points within 2 hours. And at night, 3 points within 2 hours. And you're given a map, and you're given a compass and a protractor. So you have to know your map is your blueprint, your plan of where you have to go, in what direction, how long it's going to take you, all your planning. And you have to, and the map has a legend. And that legend tells you elevation, where there's a hill, there's a tree, there's a valley, a ridge. So you have to plan this into your navigation. You plot it, and here's the other thing. There's an azimuth difference. There's a correlation, depending on the map, of degrees from the map to the actual land. And you have to know what that is, so that when you do your conversions and plotting, you plan that into it. And if you don't, you'll be way off. So knowing the map, knowing the terrain, knowing the conditions, and then you set out. And you're going along, and you cross a swamp, you cross a river, you cross a valley, whatever it is. And you have to know, here's one thing you have to know that's super important before you even start on land navigation, and that's your pace. How many steps do you take every 100 meters? My pace is 65. I still know that to this day. So every 65 steps, I've walked 100 meters. And the other thing is, when you're walking, do you drift left or do you drift right? I drift left. I'm left-handed. So that plays into how you are going to navigate. So you set out, and you have to know all of these things. And when you come across, you may come across a path that you simply cannot get around. You think you can't, because I have to go straight ahead right there, but I have this mountain in front of me. You have to plan that into it. You have to adjust and plot around it to get back on track. So all of these steps is like life itself, that you can have a goal, you can have a plan, but have you planned in the pitfalls, the challenges, the rivers, the valleys, the ridges, the swamps, that tree, that branch that might whack you as you're walking in the middle of the night and poke your eye out if you're not careful? It's life. And this is a skill set that I value, and I always give that as an example of what life is like, what life is about. And you practice it, and you do it over and over again, and you get better at the craft. But you need to know where you're going. You need to know what's on your map. You need to know what's on the ground. And you need to know yourself. And have the right tools. You need to have that azimuth, that compass, and that protractor, and that map.
So I love all this. And I like to circle back to something you said earlier. I'm serious. I want to add some levity to this. I'm loving all of your metaphors. But now I got a question. Cathey might call this a game. Can you think of a shift you once had to make, an adjustment you once had to make, a change you once had to make that you can laugh about right now? Right. So for example, I always, and Cathey's heard me tell this story, right? I'm there teaching my class, being all serious as the English teacher that I am, teaching them about public speaking and presentation and how to present themselves and how to write properly. And I tell them this story about a young Marc Williams climbing up to the roof and thinking about jumping off, only because some fool dared me and I thought I actually could do it. And in the middle of telling this very serious story, rip, my pants split from the front to the. I
Oh,
got 34 teenagers sitting in my class. I don't know if they heard it. I don't know if they saw it, but I knew that I had to shift around the class for the next 45 minutes.
oh,
Compose the seriousness of teaching until I can actually go out and buy a new pair of pants. Shift happens.
That's a
oh,
good one, Mark.
that is a good one.
I want to hear about some comical shifts that the two of you have had to make.
Can I make an observational one?
Yes.
You both have had to make shifts in this call. So I heard a noise and I was like, what is that noise? And it was Josue's dog. And I knew it was the sound of a dog. And then I slowly watched Josue, his dog goes and sits on the couch in the back. And I slowly saw Josue's like background shift. He shifted the background. And then Mark, I was in the middle of talking and I saw you talking to somebody. I saw you like trying to like navigate this situation and you both did it really well. So for anybody watching, it unfolded real time. And I think you both did a really good job of navigating the shift.
Very observant.
I think it's these moments when we have this, it's to humble us. I've literally stepped out where I'm just feeling like on top of the world. I can feel the ego and just confident. I can take on anything, and I'm dressed nice, blah blah blah. And it's those moments where I just out of nowhere I'll step in dog poo or something, or trip over something. And it's like, why does that always happen whenever I'm feeling like at the top of my game? Like something just has to knock in my way and remind me, it's like, hey, don't take yourself too serious.
Calm down with all that, right?
It grounds you a little bit. To go back to a story that I can think of was, I became a flight medic, something that I dreamed of in the Army. It was just like the most awesome job. You're the coolest, you wear a flight suit, all of those things, right? And I'm being trained by the instructor medic, and I'm used to a certain environment to do, and it's just, I'm doing just a basic thing. So we get called on a call to go pick up a soldier who'd been injured, and you have to do vital signs. And that was my first time going out on a call in the aircraft. So it was noisy, it was vibrating, and you can't hear, so you have to do a lot of hand signals. And I remember just jumping off the aircraft, my world's spinning. We get the patient in the aircraft, and he's like, all right, start doing your assessment. And I remember just, I'm doing the pumping for the blood pressure cuff. I'm just going like crazy, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, the needle isn't going up. And I'm like freaking out, like, what is going on here? And I'm just pumping, needles going up and back down. And he looks at me, taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, what? He grabs the cuff. I never put it on the patient.
Oh.
I'm like, that's a hell of a way to make an impression.
Oh my
The
gosh.
cuff was all blown up.
I bet you never did that again.
No. Oh.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That is a good one. I'm glad that you asked because I think this topic benefits so much from the seriousness of it and the levity of it. And I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, I also want to go back to this nature of shit happens sort of being what happens to us, right? I think I just said shit and not shift.
Yeah. We got it.
Thanks for lightening it
Shit,
up, Mark.
shift,
That's what we
same damn
needed.
thing.
We needed to lighten it up a little bit. And
There we
But you know
go.
what? Just like we're familiar with the term shit happens, and then your player's shift happens, there's another phrase, make shit happen.
Yeah.
Or in this case, make shift happen.
Mm,
And
love
I
that,
think
Mark.
that's the empowering part of your message.
Yeah.
Shift happen.
Mm, that's so good. I love that because that's even more empowering than what you said before, Josue. Now it's like the preempt. It's like making a shift before it happens to you sometimes. And maybe some of these things look like, sometimes it might be a shift in a career move. You have this great story, Josue, about, starting a business in New York, right as the pandemic was happening, and, just being able to make your own shift and, shift, could be a shift from a relationship, something that really, needs to be done. I love that, Mark. It kind of makes you look at your life in a way of like, is there anything in my life right now that I need to make some kind of shift happen?
I think having this conversation, it unpackaged the whole concept of what we're talking about.
Hmm.
Because we may see the world, we may see things happening, and we can say, yeah, shift is happening, right? But it's still going round and round, and we're still sitting in our place in the same condition. And it's getting hotter, colder, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And rather than complain about it, we need to make shift happen.
Hmm.
It kind of goes back to the whole idea of just do it, the Nike motto. And I think we need to, as just in general, that I think that's a great mindset, a great approach to just say, make shift happen. Make shift happen. That's when we grow. That's when we learn. I took a big leap of faith and I moved to New York from Hawaii. I made that shift. And some can say the business didn't make it. No, it was doing fine. I made the decision because I saw another opportunity. So I made a shift, another shift.
Hmm.
And that shift has turned out to be incredibly rewarding. But I took the lessons of what I learned in New York that helped me for the next. Everything has been you learn every step of the way. And I never look at anything as a failure, as a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. And even some things that I've done, I'm like, I'm going to cash in on that later. That's there, that experience, it's there. It's just sitting there, gaining dividends, earning interest, but it's going to pay off.
Hmm.
So I have that approach. And I feel like I'm at a point right now again where I'm comfortable, you can say, but comfort is a very dangerous place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So what you brought up, Mark, I need to make shift happen.
Hmm.
And if I'm not going to wait for life to make me uncomfortable. One of the things Jeff Bezos says all the time is that he's always out to disrupt himself, to disrupt Amazon, not his competitors. He's thinking of how he's going to disrupt Amazon, and look where he's at.
Yeah. He's making shift happen all the time. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really good, Mark, that was a really good way. I feel like we keep expanding on this, and it just the more that keeps coming up for me is just super empowering, because if we can look at shift and change and not look at it with fearful eyes, but look at it with responsibility eyes, and if we can even take it further and look at our life and try to disrupt our lives and figure out what shifts could we make to continually improve our conditions and the lives of people around us. These are things that we can do in the world and feel like we don't have to sit and complain about all of the things that are going around outside of us, because we can make an impact in the places and spaces where we can.
And let's add this to it. And I love that Jeff Bezos example. Sometimes we think disrupting what is happening around us is about what bad things are happening around us. For somebody to own a company like Amazon and say, I'm gonna disrupt. Everything's going well. Well, most things going well, right? But I'm gonna disrupt it to make it even better, right? You could be in a relationship with somebody and say, you know what? We've been kind of doing the same thing for a while, right? We're cruising in this relationship. Let's disrupt it. I mean, everything's great, but let's disrupt it, right? Listen, Cathey and I, we got this whole, it's about to go down. And then shift starts happening in our lives with Speaker Skills Academy. And now we're disrupting, it's about to go down, not because there was anything wrong with it, but we're surveying the land and everything that's going on. And we're like, oh, we got to disrupt this to create something new. So shit doesn't have to be bad for the shift to happen.
Oh, well said, Mark.
It's as you go ahead, Cathey, you were going to say something.
No, I was just laughing about Mark. I love the way he kind of pieced that together. Shit doesn't have to be bad for shit to happen and shit to be good. Or shift to be good.
It's, there's always, change is always occurring, transformation. And we have the power of being creators. How we take whatever the rubble, the pieces, and you look at some artists, they'll take stuff on the side of the road and they'll make it where somebody will pay millions of dollars for it.
Yeah.
They add their touch to it. They add their talents, their art, their expression. And the things that we do, whether it's Speaker Skills Academy, it's about to go down, these are artistic representations of yourselves. And I'm here, you drew me to be a part of this. I'm here because of you, both of you, and what you represent. And when we surround ourselves, and it goes back to everything in life, we can't do it alone. When we're surrounded by the right people, anything is possible. And when you bring like-minded individuals, talented with ideas, you walk away with so much more than the pieces that you started. You have what's called emergence. Emergence. And oftentimes in the world, what we see is emergency. Because the right pieces aren't in place. And then we were reactive.
Man, Josue, just fire with the analogies and the words today. Oh, so good.
Man, I love that emergency line. Wow. Cathey, I don't know about you. There's so much that has happened in this conversation. My mind is like just on a swirl. I'm loving it. Josue, talking about shifts that have happened. We've been having a wonderful conversation over these past 45 minutes or so about shifts happening. Since we started it, what shifts in your thinking have happened since we started this conversation?
The clear, obvious one is acceptance of what is that Cathey brought up. And the second is recognizing where I am, where I want to go. And I'm going to use your term, Mark, making shit happen.
Love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, Josue, coming from the wonderful Isle of Hawaii.
Hey.
Hawaii. How do people find out about you and the work that you do, and how you are a model of making shift happen? How can they learn more about you and from you?
Well, I have an online business and a retail business here that I express to share with the world the art, the beauty of Hawaii, and in essence, a representation of something that I've created. It's, www or diamondwoodhi.com, diamondwoodhi.com. And there's a story behind it that I'd like to share perhaps on another episode, another time, and how dreams do come true.
Hold on. Cathey, can I go to Audible for a second?
Yeah.
Really just say you had a story for another time? Man, you can't do that to us.
Tell
a
us now.
story.
We're out of time. All right.
Tell a story.
If you have time for it.
Tell it. Tell it.
I grew up in Southern California, and I was a newspaper boy. I delivered newspapers every single day. I lived like right on the border. You know, you have the wrong side of the tracks and the right side of the tracks. I was right on the border of it. So I got to go to the better school. And the kids that I went to school with, their parents were lawyers, doctors, business owners. And my parents were just working class. We lived in a small apartment, but I used to deliver to these beautiful homes in these beautiful neighborhoods. And throughout the school year, I would be throwing the papers and I could hear the kids. They had all the toys, the ramps in their backyard, all of it, pool, swimming. But I was working, delivering newspapers. But I would notice something in the summer. They would all disappear. And I would always be like, where did they go? None of the kids are around. When school would start, they would all come back and they would bring their Maui gear. And they would talk about their stories in Lahaina and how they spend the summer in Hawaii. And as I delivered papers year after year, one time we went out and we were taken to go door to door, do subscriptions to get more customers. And on the cover of that was a picture of Diamond Head. And you could win a trip to Hawaii, and it had a description of Waikiki. And I remember looking at that as I knocked door to door, and as I delivered papers every day. And I told myself, one day I'm going to go there. I'm going to walk those beaches. History has a way of, or life has a way of playing itself out. I live in Hawaii now. And guess what? Kids from all over the world come today and they get their Maui gear from yours truly.
Oh, what a great story. So great. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you asked, Mark. I was thinking the same thing. Don't not tell us the story. Oh, Josue, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Life has a way of making things happen, and yet we have the power to make life happen, to make shit happen, to make shift happen. Josue, thank you so much for being a part of this whole It's About to Go Down idea conversation, the energy, the wisdom, the joy you brought to it, the seriousness you brought to it, and the levity that you brought to it, and all of those metaphors, and of course, that wonderful and amazing story that you dropped at the end. Listen, for everybody who's watching, we're wrapping up this It's About to Go Down show. We're going to transition to the future speaking and do some more things. So there's going to be other opportunities for anybody who has not had an opportunity to join Cathey and I for an idea conversation. There'll be some way for you to join us to have an awesome conversation and talk about some amazing things like the amazing idea that we just had an opportunity to talk about with Josue today. But until we have that opportunity to talk to you and to everybody else, continue to hang out with us for these last couple of episodes. If it's about to go down, continue to reach out to amazing people like Josue, and continue to remember, shit doesn't happen. Shift happens. And when shift happens, oh, it's about to go down.